There was like this pre-release event for Final Fantasy 16, and I knew this was gonna happen because it was rumored that was gonna happen. And they released a Final Fantasy 16 demo.
Ooh.
And for the sake of the podcast, I played it last night, and I played the rest of it this morning. Oh my god! So, uh, like because by the time the next time we record, the game will be out, and it will have had been out for a week. I decided to play the demo real quick, and so we could talk about this podcast. Um, and there were two parts to the demo. One was literally like the first 3 hours of the game, like the first
Okay.
chapter, and the other took place a little further into the story. But both of these demos were demos that press had gotten a chance to play within the last year or so and had talked about in their previews that I've been discussing over the last few months in the podcast. So this is stuff that we've heard about before, but never seen or played, of course. Um, and the one that covers the first chapter of the game actually allows you to save your data so that if you buy the game next week, you can actually continue where you left off rather than having to play
Oh, that's
the
cool.
whole 3 hours again, which I was afraid of. Like when I was going in, I was like, I hope it's not the first 3 hours because I hope it's not the beginning of the game because I don't want to have to replay the beginning of the game when the game comes out. But then when I finished
Right.
it, it let me save, and I was like, oh, and it told me like, oh, you can pick up like when you actually get the game, and I had thought I pre-ordered it, but I didn't, and I mean, I was gonna do it. I felt like I was gonna do it anyway because I feel like I was convinced that this game was gonna be good already. But after playing the demo, I was 100% like, oh yeah, I'm going to pre-order this. I have no reason not to.
Right.
I think I literally took off. I think it comes out on a Thursday, and I took off on Thursday, and then said, you know what, might as well also ask to try and get time off on Friday too. So I might as well just take those 2 days. Yeah, it was fun. The combat is a blast, and the story so far is actually really compelling. Like the way they described it, I was like, it sounds interesting, but I'm not sure how much I'm gonna like it. It might be one of those things that's a little bit too focused in like old school politics, and I'm like, I don't know if I'm gonna like it, but I actually like it a lot. And it is very reminiscent of something like Game of Thrones, where on the surface, when you think about something like that, you think it might be boring, but shows like Game of Thrones are actually really interesting. Um,
Right.
and it's like that. And the story so far, like there's I don't want to. Oh, I'm not going to spoil it, but there's this thing I figured out towards the end of the demo, for the first part of the demo that shows the first couple hours of the game, that I did not notice in any of the trailers or other gameplay that we've seen, despite the fact that this is stuff that we've seen in all the trailers before. And I was like, wow, they did a good job of like, despite them showing us arguably way too much of this game over the past like half year, like they just won't stop showing us stuff. Um, but despite that fact, I just never noticed about this one specific thing. I don't even know. I'm trying to think if I should say it. Do
You
you,
probably shouldn't.
are you gonna play this game?
I might actually.
Okay, cause yeah, I'm not gonna say it. It's good though. It feels like it's something they're setting up to be a twist, but if you pay attention, it's noticeable at the very beginning. Um, but yeah, just moving on from that, I'm gonna just talk about getting to the specifics of the combat. So I had to switch to controls when I was playing through the second portion of the demo. That takes place a little bit further into the game.
Mm.
Um, because I'm used to dodging in most video games with the circle, but in this
Right.
game, in the default controls, it was R1, which is
Mm.
strange. So you can't manually change the controls, but you can choose from preset options. So the second option literally just turns it into like a um, like a Souls game where like you attack with the triggers. Like those are the buttons you use to do your melee attack,
Right.
and you press circle to dodge. And Jedi Survivor is the same way. Um,
It's
but
funny that you say
dis-
that.
despite,
Oh,
now I
go
was
ahead.
gonna say, despite me like saying that you can switch the controls to be like a Souls game, it's this game is nothing like a Souls game. It's 100% through and through hack and slash. It's literally being made by the same combat director from Devil May Cry 5, and it definitely feels like a Devil May Cry or a Bayonetta in terms of combat.
Nice. Exciting. Love
But,
Bayonetta's combat.
but yeah, what were you gonna say?
I was gonna say, it's funny that you say the thing about like R1 using the dodge. I think it's because I've played so many uh games done with platinum and all that. I'm used to the R1 dodge. Circle to dodge sounds very strange to me.
Yeah, in most like Souls inspired action games, circle is the dodge button. Uh, and like instead of using the face buttons like square and triangle to do your melee attacks, R1 and R2 are the melee attacks. Was like the default is that square is your melee attack. What's triangle? I forget what triangle. Triangle, I think, is like your special iconic ability, and X, of course, is the jump. But if you change the controls, it took me a while to get used to it. By the end of that second part of the demo, I actually got really used to it. And was it R2 became the button you used to do your projectile? Oh, that's what triangle was. Triangle was projectile. Um,
Gotcha.
and it switched it to where R1 was your melee attack, which you, with each iconic ability you can do like a 4 button combo. And then R2 became your projectile, which makes sense because it's a trigger. L2 became your special ability for whatever iconic ability you had equipped at the time. L1 is lock on, X is still jump, circle became dodge, and triangle, you hold down triangle and press either R1 or R2 to do another set of special abilities. And then square, I don't remember what square was. Oh, square was the switch between the iconic abilities, I think. Um,
Gotcha.
yeah, it's like when I was first playing it, because of course naturally at the very beginning you only have access to the powers of Phoenix, and so you're not switching between them. So I was wondering like how is this going to get deeper because it feels very like most hack and slash games. It starts off very basic, and I'm like,
Right.
how's this combat gonna get deeper? I can dodge and all that jazz. It's cool and all, but and parry. You parry by literally pressing attack and attacking a character at the same time they attack. And once I had got it, I was fighting this kind of mini boss where I got a handle on that, and I was like, "Ooh, this is good." But where I noticed where the complexity is going to come in is when I got to the point where they were like showing me how to upgrade, and I saw the upgrades that I could get, and I was like, "Oh, this is how it's going to get more complicated." You unlock abilities that make the combat a little bit more complicated, and
Rich.
it's yeah, rich. Rich is the perfect word. It's a classic case of low skill floor, high skill ceiling.
Ah.
You could make it as complicated as you want it to be, but at a base level, it's just as difficult as you need it as you want it to be. Um, what is it? I know we talked before about the I forget what they call them, but I'm gonna just say trinkets because I can't remember what they're called. Where you can equip things to make instead of having like there is no difficulty options, you can choose story mode or like action or like I think like combat focused mode. And I chose combat focused. And if you choose story mode, they equip you with these things, these gameplay modifiers. That essentially one of them was actually auto equipped on the second part of the demo that I played. Um, and I was gonna take it off, but I was like, you know what? Let me actually try it out and test it out so I can talk about it on the podcast. And what it does is tell you like slow down time for a brief moment whenever an enemy goes to attack you, so it gives you time to dodge for people who have a hard time dodging, which I was low key having a hard time dodging even with that on. So I have a feeling that that's going to be necessary for some people because
Right.
dodging is going to get a little bit difficult with faster enemies. Though I do plan on trying to play the entire game with none of these gameplay modifiers on. And there's other ones that like there was another one that was on that automatically had one of your partners, which was a dog named Torgal, just automatically you can tell it what to do, but if you put this on, it just fights by itself. Um,
Oh.
and there are a lot of other ones. Like there's one that I forget what the other ones do. I think there's one that like parries for you or something like that. There's ones that really just remove. There's one that does auto combos. That's one. Um, to where you just literally just press a single button and it does a cool combo and combines a bunch of different of like you would have to press a bunch of different buttons to do this combo, but you can just smash the attack button to do combos with that equipped. And essentially
Okay.
like similar to like what we talked about with Zelda before of how adding accessibility options into the actual gameplay rather than having it just be a menu option. That's essentially what they're doing in this game. And I also got to
Nice.
try out that active time lore that we talked about last time.
Mm.
And what you do is you just hold the touchpad whenever you're in a cutscene. You just hold the touchpad, and it'll open up the active time lore, and
Oh.
it'll tell you about the characters that are in that scene. It'll tell you about the place that you're in. If anybody brings up any like some people kept bringing up like battles of like stuff that happened before in the like history of this universe, and you could go into active time lore and read about that battle. Um,
Ooh.
it's real cool. This game is gonna be good, man. This game is gonna be good.